Welcome back. I'm Caroline Lindsay, veterinary physiotherapist of 25 years standing and graduate sports therapist, certified saddle fitter, and I'm a final year doctoral student investigating rider posture, pain, and performance. Thank you for following and commenting and for subscribing to my channel. At the moment I'm focusing on the FEI and dressage horse abuse and Charlotte Dujardin, which kicked off interest from the national press in the UK. Last time I touched on Charlotte Dujardin's potential sanction, if any, and I wondered if it would fall under old rules rather than new from the 1st of January when sanctions are to be increased. And I found this article from the talented equestrian journalist Pippa Cuckson. So let's go on over and take a look. Pippa has directed at least one complaint that I've seen on the FEI disciplinary webpage. So she knows a lot about how the system works. So she wrote this article shortly after the story broke, so back in July. Pippa Cuckson is the first member of the public ever to take a horse abuse protest to the FEI tribunal, and she describes the potential disciplinary outcomes for the disgraced dressage star. So what happens next is her article title. Charlotte Dujardin's top-level career is already in tatters. Her whipping video has been judged not just by the FEI and her former fan base, but by others now distancing themselves as fast as they can press the send button. Today, she's already lost her UK sport funding while the investigation is ongoing, and the Brook Hospital, the equine charity, once proud to call her their ambassador, dumped her. UK broadsheets also say on good authority that the issue has cost Dujardin damehood. Well, I don't see any signs of it coming this year in the January honours. But further down the line comes an FEI disciplinary decision. How long exactly will she be officially exiled from dressage? Personally, I don't see her coming back. From the 5 videos that I've made about her autobiography and reading out excerpts from it where I had concerns about horse abuse in it, I think with her personality that she has to win, and the fact that she doesn't appear to have a horse at the moment where she can go straight in at the top, because her Olympic horse that was supposed to be going to the Paris Olympics with her has been sold to Austria. So I'm not aware of any other top level medal winning horses coming through. And I think because she's been dropped by a number of her sponsors, I think she's got a long climb to get back to the top. And I just think not winning is not an option for her. Her current provisional suspension, imposed yesterday after the video came to light, is not a direct punishment at this very early stage. It is the normal procedure for standing someone down from competition while serious allegations are investigated and the legal process cranks into action. These types of disciplinary actions, one aspect of them is that they can't just go ahead and destroy somebody's career, livelihood, reputation. So when they are giving out these sanctions, they have to be very sure about their evidence. But Charlotte Dujardin promptly admitted that she was the individual that was whipping the horse in that video. So it's fairly clear that she's owned up to it and that she will be dealt with accordingly. I'll read on because I've got more to say about that. The sanctions ultimately decided by the FEI legal department or by the FEI's independent tribunal, if she opts for a full hearing, could still be months away. I can't see her opting for a full hearing because she's seen in the video, what I saw, brutalizing that horse. So it looks like a pretty black and white case, although I'm thinking that she could argue the length of sanction, or that would, I would just presume, come as an appeal. But this is not going to be an easy case because she's high profile and her lucrative career is at stake. It's not just riding horses and winning medals. She trains horses and has part ownership in horses. So that would be the lucrative part of the business. It is likely to comprise a ban of several years and a substantial fine, which was my prediction that she could potentially get 10 years under the new rules. But looking at the old rules, maximum is 2 to 5 years ban from competition. That doesn't stop her from working with horses. But how many? Possibly the same as the 3-year ban on fellow dressage rider Leandro da Silva for manhandling his daughter's tiny pony on another private educational session and laughing while so doing, though maybe not as much as the 10 years still being served by US jumper Andy Kocher for using concealed electric shock spurs on multiple horses over at least 2 seasons. What is wrong with these people? They are abusers. They have no empathy. They certainly have no real talent for training horses, because if they did, they would not have to do this. It's sickening. So yeah, 10 years, great. But are they still working? Are they still abusing? Not sure in this case, but I stand by my opinion that abusers never change. And a number of them abuse people, children too. In the past, the FEI has given credit for prompt admission of guilt, which Dujardin has already given, although also saying she's ashamed. Well, but yeah, in cases such as this that I've seen in similar areas, the rule breakers, shall we say, is expected to grovel to get leniency. And if they don't, they're less likely to succeed. But on the other hand, will the FEI disciplinary tribunal want to make her an example, given the immense reputational damage done to equestrianism? I don't think they can take that stance. I do think they have to, as she's high profile, they cannot just destroy her career. This will be about the evidence and sticking to procedure, unfortunately. Now, before you say, oh, but you're on Charlotte's side, I absolutely am not. That video of hers was a complete obscenity. I've made a video about my reaction to it and what she was potentially trying to achieve by brutalizing that horse, in my opinion. And I just don't think she'll come back. I don't see people necessarily paying huge sums of money for horses from her. So I think she'll take herself out of the sport anyway. In under a day, the video has attracted relentless global media attention on a scale dwarfing any coverage of past rapping or blue tongue scandals and cross-country fatalities. Yes, because we all believed the hype that she was changing the face of modern dressage by being a kind, empathic trainer. The incident meets the definition of horse abuse under Article 142 of FEI General Regulations. Any action or omission that causes or may cause pain or unnecessary suffering. Is pain in training a necessary suffering? Because if you've ever been in training or conditioning, physical conditioning yourself, you'll know it hurts. So the fitness process hurts. You can feel it in your muscles. You might be stiff for a day or two. You can injure yourself along the way. Is that unnecessary suffering for a horse? Well, how much discomfort can a horse be expected to tolerate while they're in training? There is arguably a further case of bringing horse sport into disrepute under Article 164.12. That is a relatively new measure applied rarely to date, but as the FEI strives to show zero tolerance, it might add that to the charge sheet. Yeah, why not? She's seriously brought the sport into disrepute. And I would add another one. She, to me, seriously and gravely endangered that young rider's life by attacking a horse relentlessly with the rider on board. And add to that, I would be traumatized. I don't think I'd ever get over that if a trainer did that to a horse that I was riding. So FEI do include that as well, because this could have been a lot more serious than it is. Unusually for an abuse incident, Dujardin is not denying the offence. That would be specious, given the unequivocal content of the video and her clear remark near the start of the clip that the lunge whip she brandished was so shit at hitting them hard. Yeah, this also shows that this was not the first time that she used a lunge whip to, and potentially full force, to hit a horse hard with it. So what does she hit them with that is more effective at hitting them hard? Social media clearly thinks Dujardin should have a life ban. Yes, so do I. It may, though, need to brace itself for disappointment. So do also recall that the RSPCA, under normal circumstances with animal abuse, they would step straight in and she would receive a substantial sanction here. So I did read somewhere that they're waiting for the FEI to conclude, and then I guess they will make a decision. How close does an FEI sanction align with their potential sanctions? And this will be the interesting bit because it's a high profile case. I can't see them trying to sweep it aside because they depend as a charity on donations. And when the public sees that the RSPCA is not doing enough for animal cruelty prevention, they'll just stop donating. So, tricky case, not straightforward. There is a set tariff for abuse ranging from low end and mid range to top end, which can only result in a 5-year ban at most under old rules and maximum. While coaches' heinous offences were deemed to fall within the maximum classification and a life ban was therefore an option. Even he got just 10 years. It's difficult to fathom that the tribunal would put the claimed one-off aberration of Dujardin in the same category. Yeah, she could say, well, what evidence have you got that I didn't do this in a moment of madness? Will there be other witnesses coming forward? If there's a hearing, if there isn't a hearing and she just accepts the decision of the FEI without challenging it, she may get some leniency. Many expected Kocher to get more than 10 years, but it's feasible that the FEI tribunal had lost confidence at that key moment 4 years ago because of a recent huge setback at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. FEI had previously banned an endurance rider for a record 18 years. Not surprisingly, he appealed and the Court of Arbitration for Sport threw out the FEI's entire case on procedural and evidential points, notably that the FEI had not proved the horse was nerve blocked to conceal a stress injury that caused a fatal fracture during the race. So, yeah, this is about evidence. Either you have evidence to make the case and to argue the case, or you don't, or your evidence is weak, or more evidence is required. So, yeah, it's not just how the public feels. The FEI have to get this right. The horse community will be impatient for a Dujardin decision and baffled why it can't happen ASAP, yes. There is little public understanding about the necessarily ponderous pace of FEI legal process, same for most legal processes, especially regarding horse abuse. That is hardly surprising. For several years, most abuse cases were about endurance racing in the Middle East, and its decisions rarely circulated beyond that niche activity. Yes, if you go to the FEI disciplinary list and the decisions outcomes, you'll see that there's a lot of endurance riding cases, even though they have to have veterinarians there and present. But yes, that sport has been dominating the disciplinary, maybe because it's very out in the open on the public stage, and that perhaps a lot of dressage horse training is behind doors, and people who perhaps witness these abuses don't feel motivated to come forward because there's a lot at stake for them at the time. But hey, everybody's got a mobile phone. Let's get out there. Let's get a system for getting these cases in front of the authorities that can deal with them somehow. We don't necessarily have to confront the abuser, but we do need a system where we can feel safe to make a complaint and get some help for the horse. So I still say, you ain't going to do anything with the abuser. It's the horses that we need to get away from these people. Legal delays can be caused by a reluctance of witnesses or a lawyer's stalling tactics. The alleged nerve blocking case dragged on for 3.5 years. However, that sort of delay should not occur with Dujardin, given the considerable undisputed information already in the public domain. Another lawyer this afternoon suggested the delay in reporting the case to FEI would render it inadmissible. However, there is ample precedent in previous tribunal abuse decisions to allow video evidence of similar vintage to this case. Not being disciplined on a legal technicality would in any event be a very hollow victory for Dan's team. Yeah, so when the story broke, everybody's witch hunting the whistleblower. Oh, if you think this was abuse, why did you risk other horses being abused over several years? Why didn't you report this straight away? Why did you go to a lawyer with the purpose, potentially, of hitting this rider as hard as you possibly can. But as a whistleblower myself, in an equestrian situation, I felt, now in my experience, if you're going to confront a bully or bullies or an organization, whoever you are confronting, you need to hit them as hard as you can, or nobody will listen. And also, if there's only one of you, you're less likely to be listened to or heard. So you do have to pick your moment for maximum impact. Historically, the tribunal has shown appreciation of prompt admission of guilt and showing remorse, which I mentioned earlier. If you don't, the tribunal won't hold back from criticising a rider's lack of contrition. Yeah, if you're caught and admit, then if you're not very sorry for what you've done, for your actions, then you wouldn't be considered to be remorseful about them, therefore you may repeat them, so you will be criticised. It tends to rally against diversion tactics, such as accusing the protester of vindictiveness, which for the record seems to have been done by just about everyone other than Dujardin to date. Any motive bringing clear evidence of abuse is of no concern to the tribunal. Interesting, yeah. So if you call someone out on abuse, your motive is not questioned. So that whether or not this is in fact a revenge case, we don't know, that won't be dealt with by the tribunal. It has even scolded riders for criticising the person or persons bringing the alleged abuse to light. In fact, under FEI endurance rules, it even became an offence to not report abuse. Yeah, and as I was going through Charlotte Dujardin's autobiography, I was amazed at how many individuals stood back consistently and let the harsh treatment of horses go unreported. Why was that? Why did it take for her to be 35 plus years of age for somebody to come along and say, what you're doing is completely unacceptable? So I'm not saying that in her book she did what she did in the video, but I found questionable, harsh treatments in her training, in her own words. But since the last headlining abuse case, there has been a development. The FEI legal department's now regular use of a consent award, and this is a plea bargain facilitating a slightly reduced ban. It has been used mostly in anti-doping cases to free up tribunal time and reduce the offender's legal costs. Yeah, because the problem with the doping cases is that it's difficult to prove that the rider or trainer was the one to administer the drug. So yes, there's no dispute about the substance being in the horse's blood, but the question of who put it there is, or how it got there, is always open to question. If that option was available in the Dujardin matter, it would deny the whistleblower their day in court, should they even want it, given the raft of victim shaming on social media over the past 24 hours. So immediately after the video was published online. For Dujardin, a consent award would mean minimal publication of what else happened that day, being spared a further public drubbing by the tribunal. Yeah, so we had 1 minute of that recording. We don't have the whole session. 1 minute of it is bad enough. So we don't know the circumstances behind it. Who was the rider? Who was filming it? Who was laughing? We don't know what led up to Charlotte Dujardin's action that day? What was her motivation? What triggered her to do that? So obviously I say a lot more about that in my reaction video of that whipping incident. So yes, there's a lot more to this story. We may never find out more details about it because any hearing may be held behind closed doors in Switzerland, where the FEI are based. But as the legendary singer Bob Marley sang, what's in the darkness must come out to light eventually. There are pros as well as cons for throwing yourself on the mercy of the tribunal. There is much for her legal team to consider when the dust settles and Dujardin endeavours to transfer her legendary focus to a very different career-defining event. And that's the end of the article. And yes, as this commenter says, on its own, her rapid and compound error of judgment renders any context regarding the video irrelevant and unnecessary. As a side issue, I'm curious about the delay in reporting. It was either 4 years when we were in and around the time we were in lockdown, in and out of lockdown, or 2.5. And I'm somewhat suspicious of the timing, so close to the Olympics. Obviously, acting for the integrity of the sport and welfare of the horse is of overriding importance, but who benefits from this delayed reporting? Well, as I say, it's maximum impact. The Olympics is about fairness and sportsmanship, and the horses deserve to be treated in a sportsmanlike way as much as the athletes. And by that I mean they don't have a choice. They should, no horse or any animal should suffer to perform movements which require years of training to achieve at that level or at the levels we've seen at the Olympics. They don't deserve to be treated harshly, poorly, brutally, so that an athlete can win a medal. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Olympic Committee, who have more power over the Olympics than the FEI do, I wouldn't be surprised if equestrian sport was dropped from the Olympics, because when you look at cases like this, it doesn't seem to fit there. And the whipping video case, the horse wasn't a horse she was riding in competition. This was somebody else's horse, as far as we know. I'm not sure if she had a financial interest in that horse or not. A lot of the other that I've seen on the FEI disciplinary list feature the rider abusing the horse that they are competing with. So why is it that the horse was so poorly treated while being ridden by a young rider? So again, lots of detail to fill in there in this case, if eventually the whistleblower ever comments about it. But yeah, it's an unusual case. And that's why I think that the FEI should be looking at maximal sanction, especially because that rider could have been so severely injured herself. As always, what do you think? Leave a comment about any aspect of this. Thank you for those who are commenting privately to me and encouraging me to keep digging with this one. Believe me, I will. Because I want to see the abusers out of the sport, but I would like it done in conjunction with sanctioning. I'd like to see ethical riders being able to come through and compete. Bye for now.